Hello, my name is Michelle, and I'm a 63-year-old woman. My husband passed away about 6 years ago, but I am still working. I have 2 kids, and 5 of them live in different states across the country. They each have their own families, and I'm very blessed to have such a big family. One of my kids, Kyle, still lives in our hometown. He went to the community college here, where he met his wife, Julie. I liked Julie, but I didn't think my opinion mattered as long as Kyle was happy. They got married soon after and continued their education in their fields. Once they got good jobs and earned enough, they decided to have a child. I was excited to have another grandchild to spoil, but Julie was very strict about when I could visit and how long I could stay. This was understandable when Daniel, their child, was a baby, but it was still the same even when he was 5. I let it go because every family is different. Before I knew it, 15 years had passed. Because of the limited time I had with Daniel, we didn't get very close. However, we both loved books, so I always bought him books when I visited. One day at work, I got a call from Daniel. This was unusual because we rarely talked outside of family gatherings. I tried my best to connect with him like I did with my other grandchildren, but he seemed distant. "Grandma, are you free to talk?" "Yes, honey, any time for you." "Is everything okay?" "No, no." "Why are you crying? Did you get hurt? Is there anybody at home who can help you?" "Mom and Dad are here, but do you need me to call them for you?" "No, I called you because I needed your help." "My help? What can I help you with, darling?" "I need you to save me." "Daniel, what are you talking about?" "Don't laugh, Grandma." "I'm sorry, honey. That was just surprising." "I'm not laughing at you. What's going on?" "I need you to save me from my mom." "Save you from your mom? What do you mean?" "She's not as sweet and nice as she acts. She's really mean to me when no one else is around. I hear someone coming up the stairs. I have to go. Please don't tell them I called. Bye." I was confused and concerned. As far as I knew, Julie was one of the sweetest people. How could Daniel call her mean? I didn't believe him at first. I thought maybe he was just mad at her for something, like getting grounded. Daniel had always been a mischievous child, according to both Julie and Kyle. But something in my gut told me Daniel wasn't joking. I couldn't stop thinking about the call. It was so unlike Daniel. After a few days, I decided to buy a hidden camera. I felt wrong about spying, but I convinced myself I needed to do it because Daniel asked for my help. If I found nothing, I could just remove the camera. But if there was something wrong, I'd have to figure out what to do next. I hoped a long talk would solve any issues. The camera arrived a few days later. I set it up and was glad it had live and recorded footage I could access through an app on my phone. Once I had set up the camera and figured out how it worked, I decided to call my son and ask if I could come over. "Hello, sweetie. How's everything?" "Everything's great, Mom. What about you?" Same old, same old. I was wondering if I could come by your place one day. We haven't met in a long time." "Yes, of course, Mom. How about this Sunday?" "That works, but shouldn't you check with Julie if it's okay? I used to hate it when your dad made plans without asking me." "Julie would be happy to have you over. Don't worry, Mom." "All right then, I'll be there around 6 o'clock. "That works. See you soon. Take care." Even though I was going to Kyle's place with other motives, I was still excited to spend time with my son. I didn't get to see the rest of my family often, so it was nice having one of my children in the same town. The weekend came quickly. I got ready early and decided to bring something over. I went to the grocery store, picked up a nice bottle of wine, and bought a couple of books for Daniel because I knew he loved to read. When I got to my son's house, I was greeted warmly by all 3 of them. Daniel looked at me with so much relief that I got concerned again. He hadn't contacted me since that first phone call, so I had no idea what was going on. I spent the next couple of hours just talking to Kyle and Julie. We had dinner and drank wine. At some point, Daniel went to his room because we were talking about adult things that probably didn't interest him. I excused myself to go talk to Daniel. Julie tried to subtly stop me, but I insisted because I hadn't visited them in a long time, and I wanted to spend time with my grandson. Kyle told Julie to let me go. Once I got to Daniel's room, I shut the door behind me. I walked over to him and handed him the books I got him. We talked for a while about the books since he seemed really excited. I let him ramble on about them and didn't bring up what he had mentioned earlier. I wanted him to talk about it first. We then talked about other things, like what was going on in our lives. While he was telling me about his school and other stuff, he grabbed one of his notebooks and wrote something in it. He showed it to me, and it said, "Mom's listening. Can't talk about anything?" I couldn't tell if he was serious or just paranoid, but I went along with it. We continued our conversation while I wrote my plan in the notebook. I told him I had brought a hidden camera and asked if I could put it in his room. He quickly agreed. I found a good spot to place the camera, giving me a good view of the room. I started the recording and checked my phone to make sure the camera worked. I sat with Daniel a little longer until I told him it was getting late and I should go. I left my scarf behind on purpose so I'd have an excuse to come back if needed. I heard footsteps quickly moving away from the door, which made me wonder if Daniel was right. I hugged Daniel goodbye, went downstairs, said goodbye to Kyle and Julie, and went home. I was tired but checked the camera when I got back. I stayed up for an hour, watching the footage just in case. All that happened was Kyle walked into Daniel's room and asked what we had talked about. Daniel told him, and that was it. I fell asleep eventually and rushed to work the next morning. I only checked the camera when I knew Daniel would be back from school. Again, nothing much happened, and I started to think Daniel might be lying. I decided to give it one more day. If I didn't find anything, I'd go over when neither Kyle nor Julie was home and ask Daniel to give me the camera back. That night, as I watched the footage while reading, I finally found out what Daniel was trying to tell me. I watched Julie enter the room with a stick in her hand, with Kyle following behind her. I quickly unmuted the video. Julie asked Daniel what he did all day and made him describe everything in extreme detail. Whenever he stuttered, she would sharply ask if he was lying. If she thought he was, she made him hold out his palms and hit his knuckles 3 or 5 times with the stick. I watched in growing horror as she hit him more and more often. Daniel was sobbing, and Kyle just stood there watching. I was disappointed and disgusted. I had raised my kids gently and believed that kids are smarter than we think. They can understand when things are explained to them. I didn't understand why Kyle just stood there letting his son get hit for no reason. I wanted to rush over and stop them, but what would I say? It would be odd for me to show up just a day after my last visit. I remembered I had left my scarf there, which could be an excuse to go back, but I needed it for another day to see Daniel again. I picked up my phone and called Kyle. "Hey, Mom, is everything okay?" "Yes, no worries. I hope I'm not disturbing you." No, Julie and I were just saying goodnight to Daniel." "Ah, all right then. I just wanted to tell you that I think I left my scarf in Daniel's room last night. I remember setting it down and forgot it there. Do you think I could swing by tomorrow and pick it up? Why don't I just bring it over to you now?" "No, I'm too tired and will fall asleep before you get here. I had a long day at work and can barely hold up the phone right now." "All right then, why don't you come by in the evening?" "I can't. I have a game night with friends tomorrow." "Well, Julie and I won't be back until the evening. Why don't you come by the day after?" "I need that scarf for tomorrow. We're having a gathering." "Well, you could come by in the afternoon. Daniel will be home." "Lovely. I'll be there around 3. Good night, Mom." My heart raced as I ended the call. I came up with a lie on the spot. At least my call distracted Kyle and Julie enough for them to talk about what I said instead of focusing on hitting Daniel. Before they left Daniel's room, Julie said Daniel wouldn't get any food until dinner the next day. I was appalled. I wished I didn't believe they would follow through, but I knew they would. The next day, I took off from work and prepared myself for the conversation with Daniel. I was sure he wouldn't want to stay there, but I needed to hear him say it. Before going to Kyle's place, I picked up some food for us. When I got there, Daniel looked like he might faint. He was weak and tired. Julie really had made him go without food. I quickly gave him the food, and he devoured it. I felt so sorry for him and knew I had to make things better. When he finished eating, I spoke to him. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Did you see everything that happened?" "Yes, darling. I'm so sorry for laughing at you earlier. I had no idea." "It's okay. I know Mom seems like the nicest person, but has she always been this way?" "The beating only started recently, but the starving has been going on for a while. I need to understand why Kyle isn't doing anything." "He's too scared of Mom. He just follows her and does everything she says. Everything she wants, she gets." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry you've been dealing with this for a while. But I'm curious, why couldn't you eat anything at school?" "Mom doesn't send me to school on days she doesn't let me eat. I stay home. Mom measures the food in the house, and if even a bit is missing when she gets back, I get punished more. So she's starving you and hurting your education. I'm going to do my best to help you out, okay? I need you to tell me right now if you want to come live with me. I'll take care of everything you need and keep you away from Mom and Dad." "Of course, Grandma. Anywhere away from here would be great. I promise to be good. Just please take me away." "I promise I will, darling, but it will take some time. Can you handle staying here a little longer?" "Yeah, I can. I've been here for 15 years, so I can wait a bit more." I carefully took away all the wrappers and made sure to leave no trace of food. I didn't want Julie to make things worse for Daniel. We cleaned up any crumbs and double-checked to make sure everything looked as it had before. I went home and called Kyle to let him know I had gotten my scarf back and thanked him for being cooperative. Next, I contacted a good friend who worked in family law. I explained the situation, and he told me it would be a long, hard fight for custody of Daniel. He said I might get temporary custody, but Julie could change her behavior and get him back. With little evidence, it seemed fighting for custody wasn't in my favor. However, I had a plan. I could use the evidence to make Julie agree to let me be Daniel's legal guardian. Julie worked as a counselor at a middle school, and she wouldn't want her child abuse to become public and ruin her job prospects. I kept a careful watch over the footage for the next few days, gathering evidence and preparing the paperwork for a transfer of guardianship. I waited until the weekend to go over to Kyle's without notice. When Kyle opened the door, he seemed surprised. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you and Julie." "Ah, I don't think now's a good time." "Why? What's going on?" "Just family stuff. How come you're suddenly visiting so often?" "Can't I visit my son? I didn't think I needed special permission for that." "No, I didn't mean it like that. It's just that you've taken a sudden interest in us this week, and it's weird because you rarely ever drop by." "It's not really weird. I only came over today because I have something very important to talk about with you too." "What's that sound?" I knew Julie was doing something to Daniel because of how evasive Kyle was being. When I heard loud crying from Daniel's room, I pushed Kyle aside and went into the house. I couldn't stand by and do nothing. I rushed to Daniel's room and burst through the door. Daniel was sobbing, clutching his face. Julie was breathing hard, glaring at him with such malice that I shivered. I ran to Daniel and asked if he was okay. He hugged me tightly and wailed into my ear. Julie huffed and walked away. When Daniel calmed down, I saw his cheek was red and swelling. His knuckles were bleeding and there were welts on his arms from the stick. I felt a rage I had never felt before. How could anyone hit a child so hard? No child deserves that. I went downstairs to the kitchen, grabbed a bag of frozen veggies, and brought it back to Daniel to reduce the swelling in his cheek. Once he was okay, I told him I would take him to my place and asked him to pack as many things as he could. Then I went downstairs to confront Julie and Kyle. Julie looked mad, and Kyle looked like he wanted to disappear. How dare you barge into our home like that? Isn't it a good thing I did? You were hitting your child. What I do in my family is none of your business. Your child is my grandson, and he is part of my family too. You're hurting him, and I can't let that continue. He may be your grandson, but you don't live with him. You don't know what a brat he is. I'm just disciplining him. Who cares if he's a brat? He's a child, and there are many other ways to discipline a child without hitting them. You, of all people, should know this. I don't believe in that gentle parenting nonsense. Leave me and my family alone. I'm afraid I can't do that. What do you mean? I handed Julie the papers to transfer guardianship rights to me. Both she and Kyle stared at the papers, confused. I explained that they both had to sign, or I would release proof of them hitting Daniel. What do you mean by proof? I set up a hidden camera in Daniel's room last week. I have all the proof I need. Neither of your jobs will appreciate what you've done, especially yours, Julie. If you want to keep any income, I suggest you sign the papers. You were spying on us? That's a gross violation of our privacy. I only acted on information I had. I needed to make sure Daniel was safe. Mom, don't do this to us. Give us another chance. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I don't want to hear it. I'm very disappointed in you, Kyle. I raised you to be better than this. You're just as guilty as Julie, if not more. I'm taking Daniel with me, and I expect these papers to be signed. If not, you know what will happen. They didn't put up a fight as Daniel and I left. I took Daniel to get dinner and ice cream, trying my best to comfort him. I gave him a safe space to share his feelings without fear. In the following weeks, I was granted legal guardianship of Daniel. Julie and Kyle claimed they planned to move to a different state and didn't want to disrupt Daniel's education as the reason for transferring guardianship. They did move, which was a big relief for me. Daniel is doing much better now. He's happier, knowing he won't run into his parents for a long time. He's one of the kindest and sweetest kids I know, and he thanks me every day for what I did for him. I intend to keep my promise to always protect him. Thank you for listening.